Hello, Spectrum Women fans. It is I, Becca Lory Hector here, and I am back with your July installment of Asking Spectrum Women. I am so excited to be here again this month, you guys. I think it's so nuts. I feel like I just recorded June, and here it is July already. It's insane to me. I don't know where I've been. I guess busy with my own stuff, busy, building my course and doing my little things and writing, and I guess, I don't know, June just feels like it disappeared on me somewhere. I don't know. But here we are in July. I have three really good questions for you guys that I'm excited to answer for you, and that I hope the answers are helpful for you guys. So here we go. Enter the July installment of Asking Spectrum Woman with Becca Lory Hector. I don't know why I used that voice, but I liked it. It made me feel good. All right, here we go. All right, first question. I'm self-diagnosed autistic, and I recently came across your channel. Um, it's been a bit. I thought I'd ask a question that's a bit personal. I've never been able to be intimate with another person. I've never even technically been in a relationship, and I'm 39. I also have alexithymia, and that and all the usual social confusion has basically led to me being completely aloof on how to get close to people and what I'm feeling the times I do begin to get close to someone. On top of that, my sensitivity to touch tends to either paralyze me or send me running, even when I'm with someone I'm attracted to. I don't have a history of sexual trauma, although I did have an overly religious, sex-shaming upbringing, and I'm working through that. But I feel that the alexithymia and touch sensitivity are the main reasons behind this, and no amount of working through my upbringing is going to help if I don't address these things too. I don't know if I've dealt with any of these if you've dealt with any of these to the extreme, but I would love some advice on how to overcome it. Right? Great question. Thank you so much for sending in this question. I mean, it's sex and relationships, those aren't necessarily my specialty, but that doesn't mean that I don't have experience and opinion on the topics. And so I'm excited to be able to share my thoughts of this with you. So, we've got two different issues going on, right? I mean, three really. We have the upbringing, and that's part of the negative self-talk, or part of the voice that you hear in your head when you're thinking or talking about sex or reading about sex or whatever. That those voices tend to come in, and I'm glad that you're dealing with them separately. So I'm not even going to talk about them. Let's talk about the alexithymia and the touch sensitivity, though, because these pieces are a struggle for anybody in a relationship. So what I want to first do is go back and remind everybody, right, that there is nobody on the human spectrum, except for sociopaths and psychopaths who have no feelings about other human beings, right, that we all have a certain amount of touch that we like in a way that we like touch. And we all have certain kinds of emotions that confuse us and make it hard for us to understand. So this part of it is that it's a human condition, right? So part of it is that I don't know if it's recording funny or not. I don't know. I'm going to keep going. I hope it doesn't look weird. It kind of looks weird to me as I'm recording. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so that touch and the understanding of our emotions, those struggles are human things, right? But when we're on the spectrum, they are magnified. That's what I want you to understand. So it's not like you're having this strange, inhuman experience surrounding sex and touch and feelings and emotions. It is a human experience, but yours is magnified. It's magnified by the fact that you have alexithymia. It's magnified by the fact that you have touch sensitivity and autism, and you're probably easy to sensory overload, more so than the average human being. So how do we deal with these two things? With honesty. Okay, when we're dealing in a relationship, especially a new relationship, you want to establish those communication lines really early on, and you want to talk about your struggles. You want to let that other person in your life, that person that you're opening up to and you're starting to become vulnerable with, allow them to understand the struggles that come with your autism, like alexithymia. Explain that piece. Explain what alexithymia is, how it feels to you, the ways that you deal with it, your very specific version of alexithymia. And you also want to communicate your needs in terms of the bedroom, right? I don't know why we say the bedroom. I mean, people don't always have sex in the bedroom. It's just such a weird thing to say. But we want to communicate in terms of our intimacy as well, right? What you like, what you don't like, right? So some people like to be a little rough and other people don't like to be rough, and some people like to experiment and try new things and have sex in crazy places, and other people just want to have sex in the bedroom and that's it, right? And so we all have different desires, priorities, needs, all of that stuff. And when you meet a partner, communicating about your intimate needs is part of that relationship, right? Making sure that you don't just vibe intellectually, but that you vibe physically and emotionally, right? And as you're exploring that, especially early on in a relationship, it's a really good time to express those concerns about touch and about touch sensitivities, right? For example, some of us like very heavy touch. We like to be not, we don't like to be kind of soothed in that soft way. We like to be like patted on the back, right? And some of us like a softer touch versus a harder touch, right? We're so sensitive. And that's the difference between folks that are sensory seeking and folks that are sensory avoidant, right? So you need to understand those things about you too first before you can express them with somebody else. And so what I say with these kinds of things when we're trying to learn our triggers or trying to understand how our brain and body process things is to experiment and experiment alone, right? Try and figure out what kinds of touch you like and don't like. Think about how you could describe those things to another person, right? And communicate them in a way that's comfortable to you. And the other thing is to experiment with that partner. Maybe you don't like really soft touch from yourself, but maybe it feels okay coming from another source. Maybe it feels okay if it's not the person's hand, but an object instead, right? There are ways to experiment with that, but it all comes from a really clear line of communication, right? And being able to express your needs, wants, and priorities to your partner. And so what I say to you is a lot of what's going on for you right now is probably the old messages in your head, and also you're a little, I feel in your note, there's a little self-consciousness about your age too, and never really having been in a relationship. And what we need to do is stop being so self-judgmental. Anybody you get into a relationship with, the first thing they don't need to know is that they're your first relationship. That's not important in the beginning. That's something that once you've established that communication line, that you can then use it to explain all of those things, right? So now you're going to need to go into the experimental phase and decide what kinds of things you like, what you don't like, and how to explain that. And as you go out and explore partners, you want to be able to feel comfortable talking about them. And all of this stuff takes practice and work. It doesn't come easily. It doesn't come from just sitting on the couch and thinking about it. It comes from doing and trying and failing. So a partner's going to need to be a little patient with you as you experiment to find what works for the two of you. And that can be fun. The experimenting can be made into a game, and you can make that fun. So, excuse me. That is my advice concerning the alexithymia piece and the touch sensitivity. It's a lot of exploration. It's a lot of learning to know yourself, and then learning to communicate that to a partner. And I think because of your age, your partners will likely be more receptive, because hopefully they will be of a similar age. So that is my advice on that topic. If you have further questions about it, or if I didn't exactly answer your question, please feel free to email me again or let me know in the comments. On to the next question we go with the funny voice. Okay. Please tell us your experience in romantic relationships. How do you know when you are in love? How could people with autism have a relationship? All the best. Thanks for your videos. Well, thank you. I appreciate doing my videos, and I think that this is a great question. So I will share with you my experience with romantic relationships. I've only had 1 or 2 romantic relationships since my diagnosis. Prior to my diagnosis, I of course had a bunch more. What I can tell you is that my experiences in romantic relationships prior to my diagnosis were traumatic, They weren't very healthy. I was never very happy in them. And I didn't ever, in any of those relationships, ever have that clear line of communication that I'm talking about, because I didn't have any self knowledge. I didn't have a lot of um, articulation of my own needs because I didn't spend any time thinking about them. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us when we're in a late in life diagnosis situation. As autistics, we kind of learn to put our own needs and priorities aside, and that happens in our relationships. And so what happens is you end up being sort of subservient in your relationships. You know, whatever the other person wants or needs or whatever, because you just feel lucky that somebody, frankly, likes you enough to want to be in a relationship with you. So my romantic relationships and my experience in them prior to my diagnosis, I think are examples of what I never want to do again. It's a lot of hiding myself, a lot of editing myself, a lot of discomfort in relationships. Now in my autismness, I'm feeling, of course, I feel better about myself and I'm feeling happier about my life and I understand myself so much better and I can articulate my needs and wants and I can advocate for myself and I'm comfortable in my autisticness. And so that led to much healthier relationships and in fact led me to my husband that I'm now married, which is something I never thought I would have because I was having so much unsuccess in romantic relationships. So I never thought that anybody would ever want me for long enough or want me enough to want to marry me. And I never thought I'd like somebody enough to be able to tolerate them through a marriage. But when I got to know myself and I got to like myself and I was comfortable in my aloneness and in my autisticness, that's when I was open to the right person coming along because I was ready, like mentally ready, emotionally ready, and because I wasn't looking for it. I didn't need it, I wanted it. And the difference between needing and wanting in a relationship is huge. Needing a relationship to survive doesn't lead to healthy relationships. Wanting a relationship as an addition to a happy life is where we see success. And that's definitely what I found. The more I like myself, the happier my relationships are. And the more I understand myself, the better my relationships get. And so that's kind of been my experience with romantic and non romantic relationships. Much better after my diagnosis. It was really about my self understanding. Um, how do you know when you're in love? That's a tough one. Um, for me, I knew I was in love because it felt easy. It wasn't work to be around my husband. And it was actually the first time that I think I was really in love, like truly in love. I think I've been infatuated in my past. I think I've been in lust in my past. I think I've settled in my past, but with my husband is the first time that I really feel like I figured out what being in love was like. And for me, it was easy. I didn't have to be masking. I didn't worry about masking. I didn't think about masking. I didn't worry about my behaviors, my stims, any of those things. I was very comfortable in the relationship from the beginning. And I also, we established really good communication from the beginning also. So we have a very clear line of communication. He's comfortable with my direct bluntness that comes out when I talk about emotions, especially. We're comfortable with each other. And so it never felt like work. It wasn't like, oh, I have to go out to dinner with my boyfriend, which used to feel like that. A lot of times it felt like that. It felt, oh, my girlfriend wants this or my boyfriend wants this or whatever. And you just had to go and do it. And we never did things that I really enjoyed or there was no sacrifice on the other person's part. So in this relationship, there's a lot more equality. There's better communication. And because I'm really clear about who I am, I know that my husband loves me for me and who I am, and so there's no masking. It's a whole lot of authenticity, and that leads to a lot of it's very comfortable, very safe feeling. I feel like when you're in love, it shouldn't feel like work. And I know that sounds like an odd way to describe it, but if your relationships or any relationship feels like work to you, then it's not really a very good relationship or a very healthy relationship. Um, so when you find that person who it's easy to be with, you're onto something. Follow that nose, you know what I mean? All right. And then you had one other question in there. How could people with autism have a relationship? The very same way that anybody else does. You find somebody that you have something in common with. Autistics, we tend to be very mind and mind vibing about our relationships. It's not so much about looks or social standing or what that person does for a living or any of that stuff. It's usually about whether or not our brains vibe with the other person's brain. And that's how we have relationships. It's how we have friendships. It's how we have all of these things. And it's not that hard to imagine. We're human beings. It's just that our communication systems are a little bit different and our social systems are a little bit different. But with each other, those are the easiest relationships. Autistics with autistics. If you haven't explored a friendship with a fellow autistic where you're both open about your autism, do it. Do it now. Go out and get one. It's an addiction. You will love it. But really, explore our community, explore your peers, explore people to have friendships with, and oftentimes even romantic relationships will come out of friendships. Those are really good romantic relationships where you've been friends first, right? And you know that you genuinely like this person. That's pretty great. So I don't know, how can we have relationships like everybody else is what I want to say, which isn't a real answer. But relationships are work. It takes every human being work to be in a relationship with another human being. But if you're healthy when you enter into it, and you're mentally healthy, physical healthy, and emotionally healthy when you enter into a relationship, that's your best chance for a good relationship. Okay, moving along. Last question, you guys. I love deep pressure and I can't bear light touch. Ooh, this relates to question number 1 too. So here's somebody who already knows that about themselves, right? Fantastic. I love deep pressure and I can't bear light touch, but I would like to know why this is the case for so many of us. I have always asked my husband to just lay on me, not in a sexual way, and squish me for 30 seconds. It feels so good. I love having my forearms and feet pummeled. I love having my cat heavy on my lap and a blanket on me in the evenings to watch TV with the cat too. I love deep massage, but someone's light hand on my back can actually hurt. It makes me cringe. It makes sense now since realizing that I'm autistic and I know it's a thing, but I'd like to know why it is. Thanks. All right, so let's talk about it. We will talk about the big word, proprioception. And that is that deep pressure, proprioception. It allows you to feel the ends and the beginning of your body. So if you want to experiment right now with like what I'm doing, you can squish your own arm with your hands, and that's deep pressure proprioception, right? And some folks like light touch, right? And some folks just barely want to be touched. They like to be tickled or whatever, right? And some of us like the tickle on some part of our bodies and the deep pressure on other part of our bodies. Here's the deal. Those of us on the spectrum, we talk about interoception a lot, right? That communication between our brain and our body. We have an odd communication system. Sometimes it doesn't work great. We also have our sensory sensitivities, and that puts us on one side or the other, usually, of our sensory issues. You are probably a sensory seeker overall, right? You seek deep pressure. You probably seek other kinds of sensory input as well. Some of us are sensory avoiders. I personally avoid some kinds of sensory, and I seek others. I love proprioception. That's why I have my dogs. Weighted blankets work great, but there is something so incredibly perfect about the weight of a dog on your legs or your lap. I like it the heavier the better. So Walter's great for me. Also, our big Great Dane Fiona works fantastic for me. Some folks don't like that. That's too much and they feel trapped or claustrophobic by it. I find it extremely relaxing to have that deep pressure. So what you want to do is look up proprioception, and it is literally spelled the way that it sounds, proprioception. And that is what that deep pressure is, that desire for that deep pressure. Many of us, especially those of us with dyspraxia, which I also have, who struggle with where the ends and beginnings of our bodies are and kind of making our hands do what we want them to do in the right way. I find that those of us with dyspraxia seek out the proprioception a lot because we're so unaware of the endings and beginnings of our body. And so when you have that proprioception, you are very aware of your endings and beginnings and that your body is actually attached to your head. Like I walk around in the world and I think that I'm this, like even above the boobs, like armpits down. That's it. There we go. This is how I feel as a human. I function as a human from here up. I don't think about the rest of my body, and that can be a problem in terms of bathrooming, in terms of any other bodily needs, right? Overheating, temperature regulation, things like that. And so, it's important for me to acknowledge the rest of my body sometimes and to know that it's there. And so it's a sensory seek. Those are the two parts of the answers to your question. Look up sensory seeking and look up proprioception, and those answers will come to you, and you will understand why it's a part of the autism diagnosis. It's a piece of that alexithymia, dyspraxia, interoception struggle piece. So take a look. Some folks have other sensory needs that they really enjoy. Some folks really like to feel other ways in their body, like when you're swinging and you can feel there's a word for it that I've just lost in my brain. There's a word for that kind of sensation that's related to your inner ear. And some of us really need that. Some of us really like to be on swings or rocking or airplanes or roller coasters, things that really give you that vestibular. There it is. Ooh, vestibular. It's a vestibular sensation that you're looking for. So check out some of those things. You might find those things relaxing as well, and you can add them to your little arsenal of tools. All right, you guys, that's all I've got for you this month in July. We are all caught up with questions. So if you have a question that you would like me to tackle that you think other people will benefit from the answer for, please send them to me. You can email them to me directly at info@beccalory.com. You can go to my website, beccalory.com, Lori with a Y, and you can fill out my contact page, which will send me an email directly. Or you can comment wherever you're seeing this video, and I will grab up your question and save it for August. August! I can't believe it. I will save it for August. So send me your questions, send me your thoughts. Let me know with a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you like this video. Let me know in the comments if you found my answers helpful. I love hearing from you guys all the time, so feel free to reach out with your questions, and I will give you the answer. I love meeting with you guys once a month. Thanks so much for joining me on Asking Spectrum Women. I'm Becca Lory Hector, and I will see you in August.